All right, folks, welcome in. I am Jake Ellenbogen, and today we're going to be talking about the latest with the Rams, and of course, the title of today's live stream on Bleacher Report. As always, thank you for having me. Are the Rams looking to go all in like 2021? And the reason I say this is because, well, we all know the worst kept secret in the league, unless things change, is Jalen Ramsey coming back to the Rams. The Rams want Ramsey. Ramsey wants to be a Ram. This has been in the works for a bit now. And even going back to last year, there's always been interest. So here's the deal. Jalen Ramsey is likely going to be a Ram. I give it about an 80% chance. I feel really good about this. And I think it's going to happen not long after June 1st, if maybe even on June 1st. Reason being, basically, to make a long story short, Miami can save more money by getting rid of him after June 1st. He becomes a more flexible contract to move. And while it's a little bit kind of, unsure and undecided about Cooper Kupp, the idea, the growing feeling from Rams fans and media is that the Rams will be getting some of that cap relief from the Cooper Kupp post June 1st designation. So it's interesting, or rather pre-June 1st. So here's the deal. Looking at this, I do think Jalen Ramsey is going to be a Ram. I do think this is making the move to go all in, so to speak. I like the moves that they've made. It's not just, we're going to go out, we're going to get some guys that can help this team win now, but they're also trying to find a happy medium. See, it was a little bit different. Back in 2021, of course, now that was 4 years ago, Matthew Stafford was 4 years younger. This team knew they had Stafford for probably at least 3 more years, whereas now you're just thinking each year there's a chance he could hang it up. So there was more flexibility, and the Rams didn't feel like they had to build for the future while building for the here and now. And the idea that you can do both and both can coexist is just not really thought of by a lot of people, because you don't think of it like that. When you hear going all in, you just assume, that means getting the guys that are, going to help you win now, not in the future. But you can kill 2 birds with 1 stone, and we have seen that. And I thought this draft was a good example. Quality over quantity. They had a quality over quantity draft. And I don't mean to say the draft with Jared Verse, the draft with Kobe Turner, the last 2 drafts where they've drafted 24 players in 2 years. That doesn't mean there was no quality in there. But having the quantity surely helps, does it not? Having 24 swings, you're likely going to hit on some guys. Whereas if you only have 6, like this year, you better make it count. And I think the Rams did that. So I love the direction they're going in. I already feel like they have a great roster. Truly, I felt that way before the draft. I felt like they had a Super Bowl roster before the draft. But now it's really interesting because we talked about the takeaways from the draft in the last time that we were live here on Bleacher Report. And really it was, the takeaways in that the Rams have a plan for the future, the 12 personnel groupings we're going to see more often than not. With Terrence Ferguson, they tried to trade up for a pass catcher. So obviously getting Ferguson, the guy that they were high on and, rumored to consider at 26 even, that says something. They get edge depth, going out and getting Josiah Stewart, who could very well end up being a starter some point down the road. They get a running back who has pop behind his pads, a power back, but also home run hitting ability. They did not draft a corner. They did not draft an offensive lineman this year, and that's really intriguing. I do think there is a possibility the Rams are not done even after Jalen Ramsey. Now, you might not have realized it, or you did, but the Rams added another receiver to the mix. I think he'll make the 53 as long as he stays healthy. I like the player a lot. I actually really like the idea of going out and getting Britton Covey. Now, some people hear me say that and say, talking about Jalen Ramsey, and now you just switch to Britton Covey. What are you thinking? And what I would say is this: Britton Covey led all returners, all punt returners in returning yards in 2023. Okay. The Eagles moved on from him, not because he's a bad player at 28 years of age. He's coming off an injury, and they added a two-way returner in Avery Williams. And what I mean by that is Covey is a better punt returner than a kick returner. Okay. Williams can kind of do it all. So the immediate reaction is Covey is competition for Xavier Smith. I think that's what a lot of people would say. I think he has more experience than Xavier Smith. Well, it's not that I think, I know that. Covey only returned 11 kicks, but he returned 68 punts. He led the league in punt return yardage, as I mentioned, in 2023. Had an injury in 2024. He's been limited, but he has intriguing usage in the pass game. I go back to the Falcons game last year, saw him catch 6 of 6 passes for 23 yards. Now, you don't see anything that is exploding off the tape, but what you do notice is that there was an ability after the catch, and there was a gain, probably his biggest catch of the game, that was called back due to a hold. So that was interesting when I watched Britton Covey. He's also a Eagles fan favorite. So this is a well-liked guy. My take on Covey is that he's going to win the job. He's going to beat out Xavier Smith. And I think this is a great move because you can put Xavier Smith on the practice squad, since I don't think anybody's going to claim him. And then you can have Britton Covey. And if he gets hurt, you can go to Smith. But Covey averages 2 yards more than Smith when returning punts. So average per punt is a big deal. And I think this is a great sign for the Rams, because the reason why I bring this up, because this was, a latest, move on the roster. The reason I bring something like this up is because I think it's a great sign that the Rams are looking to upgrade in all areas and all facets of the roster, all 3 phases. And this is a good example of that. And to me, Covey could be a sneaky wide receiver option, the way they've used wide receivers in the past. If they choose to redshirt Kanate Mumfield, the late round, 7th round Pittsburgh wide receiver, or if they experience some injuries in their room. And to be fair, Puka Nacua and Jordan Whittington had some injuries that they were dealing with last year and have had some injuries in their background. I think this is a good move for them. But I wouldn't stop here because I've mentioned it before. And if you guys have been following me, you know where I'm going with this, or maybe you don't. But offensive line was not really addressed. A lot of people just kind of assumed Joseph Noteboom would be back. He did not come back. He actually signed with the Ravens. Good depth behind Ronnie Stanley. So while a lot of people complained about Joseph Noteboom, I think there was kind of this assumption that he was going to return. Homegrown player, drafted player in 2018. There was a lot of assumptions made that he would return. So he didn't, right? He did not return. And the reality is this. I'm not saying that Joseph Noteboom is a savior. I'm not saying he's the best thing since sliced bread, but what I am saying is that the Rams are a little unproven in that tackle room outside of their 2 starters. And this is where I think a good opportunity where, again, we talk about the theme. See, Ramsey feels like an all-in move and is not really much for the future, but he can help you right now. And maybe you sign him to another year or whatever. And he also helps your young guys too, right? But in my opinion, the Covey move, another example, really for the here and now. The draft was really for the here and now and the future. But I think if you were to go out and you add Jedrick Wills, who's sitting there untouched in free agency, a guy that started, was a really high 1st-round pick out of Alabama by the Cleveland Browns. Basically, they assumed he could make the transition from right tackle to left. I don't think it worked out nearly as well as they expected. I do think the issue is he's just a right tackle. And I didn't think his tape was that bad at left, but there could be a real argument here that this guy could be a perfect fit for the here and now depth-wise, but also to take over for Havenstein as the right tackle of the future. So you could be killing 2 birds with 1 stone yet again. But it's not just that. O'Shane Ximines, who has, he's a free agent. He suffered a season-ending injury before he even got started for the Patriots last year. He has familiarity with one of the position coaches on the team. He was with him with the Giants, and then he came over with that said guy to the Patriots. His name is totally escaping me at the time being. So that's interesting, right? You look at two guys like that could help. And again, guys that we talk about are, anybody that we're talking about now here in May, most of the time you're not going to get top-notch guys, right? You're just not. So getting an O'Shane Ximines and getting, a Jedrick Wills, that is going to help the most, in my opinion, because you're not really able to add a ton of guys at this stage in the game. But here's the deal, though. Okay. When I look at it, I think that there was just a player that was dropped that normally I'd be against it, because I'm not one of those people where anytime a player gets cut, I'm all over him. Okay. And by the way, I had to bring it up, as Drew Wilkins, their pass rush coordinator. So fits the bill if you were going to go to get an edge defender, an O'Shane Ximines, to go and compete in that depth. I'm not saying he would, take over Brennan Jackson's role or anybody, but I think he'd be good depth. Anyway, the player I'm talking about that became available today that I find very intriguing here is Gabe Davis. Okay. And I understand people hear that and they're like, wait, you like Tutu Atwell. Why would you prefer going after a guy like Gabe Davis? He's 6'2", he's 225. This is somebody that is well respected in that locker room. Okay. He was cut by the Jaguars. Really surprising. One of his teammates came out and was like, I don't get it. Guy played with an injury all year, didn't complain, didn't throw anybody under the bus, just kept a good head on his shoulders. And this is a guy that is willing to work in all areas of the game. I'm not saying he is a star by any stretch, but I'm saying he has shown the signs to be a considerable asset for a team. Now, Gabe Davis is 26 years old, and he just got cut today and was guaranteed a lot of money. Okay. So they just gave him money basically to go away. And we've seen this before. Russell Wilson got paid $89 million by the Broncos to basically just go away, and he signed a $1 million deal with the Steelers. Okay. When you get paid like that, there's not normally going to be, okay, I also need to get paid more money too. He's already made a lot this year already just by getting cut. So the question is, for the man the Bills fans used to call Big Gabe Dave, or Big Game Gabe, excuse me on that one. Gabe Davis, does he make sense for the Rams? Why am I bringing him up? I like Tutu Atwell. I love Puka. I love Devontae Adams. I'm really high on Jordan Whittington. I was just saying I like the Britton Covey pickup, Konate Mumfield. Why would I be interested in Gabe Davis? Well, do you remember when the Rams had Cooper Kupp, Van Jefferson, Robert Woods, and then they drafted Tutu Atwell, and not long after that, they signed Deshaun Jackson? Now, people remember Deshaun Jackson as being a head case. He wanted out. He made a big deal about it. They cut him. Anyway, we move on. But what they don't talk about is that Deshaun Jackson, in those limited spurts where he did get the opportunities, he exploded. He destroyed the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Okay. He had some games where he absolutely showed you the value and that rapport with Matthew Stafford. So imagine adding that type of player in Gabe Davis, who's way taller, who is going to actually block in the run game, and you add him for cheap because he got cut surprisingly. I think some people are going to look at this like, why would you add this guy? Because he clearly doesn't fit the offense after, well, we just saw the head coach of the Jaguars, Liam Cohen, who runs a very similar offense, said he wasn't worth it. They cut him. Here's my theory. They just want their own guys. And I'm not saying everybody is going to be like that, but they drafted 2 running backs. They're moving on from Travis Etienne in all likelihood. I would be shocked if he's even on the roster. But the point I'm making here is this. It's very simple. Gabe Davis is a good football player. This is a team that's trying to win now. This is a team that's trying to win the Super Bowl. And this is a team that honestly better win the Super Bowl because they have a roster to do so. If you have the money, and I'm not saying Gabe Davis won't ask for money, but if it is possible to get him on a cheap deal, I understand your concern about, okay, this hurts Tutu Atwell, this hurts Jordan Whittington. But the way I see it is, wouldn't you rather go out, get Gabe Davis, have a chance where, yeah, maybe it bottles up Tutu Atwell a little bit and you paid him $10 million and that doesn't look so great. And yes, maybe it bottles up Jordan Whittington a little bit. But wouldn't you rather have him on that roster than, be scrambling if, God forbid, Puka goes down with another injury, or Jordan Whittington goes down with another, or Tutu Atwell goes down with a similar injury he had his rookie year, or say Devontae Adams, age gets to him and he just doesn't look the same and he struggles, whatever. Wouldn't you like to have that insurance? Konate Mumpfield could absolutely be good. I'm not saying he can't. But I think Gabe Davis, the only thing that's really holding him back is that he's never had a 1,000-yard season. But this is a guy that's had 29 touchdowns in 5 years. And in the 4 years, he had 27 touchdowns. So his first down year was last year, and he played every game he played in, he was banged up. And last year was just pitiful for the Jaguars. But we saw what happens when you get him with the Bills. You get him with a good quarterback. See, the Rams, big issue with them, they were lacking explosive plays. Everyone said it. Everyone said it last year. This team is lacking explosive plays. I know it seems like they fixed that, and they've done a good job in doing so. But my thing is, why not? If he wants to come to the Rams, and I don't know if he does or not, but I do think he fits this team like a glove. I am all for getting good players. I don't like, stunting the growth of a player. I don't like doing that, but this is important. I think it's good to prepare. I think this coincides with Jalen Ramsey. I'm not saying he is Jalen Ramsey, a wide receiver. That's not what I'm saying at all. But you can make the argument the Rams don't need Jalen Ramsey this year. They don't. They got Akello. They have Darius. They have Covey. They have Emmanuel Forbes, right? Darion Kendrick, they're way higher on than you think. They actually have a lot of corners. So they don't technically need Jalen Ramsey. Understand what a need is. A need means you can't live without it. You can't survive without it. They want Jalen Ramsey, and Ramsey wants to come back. And does that give them more of a chance of winning a Super Bowl? It sure does. So does Gabe Davis, for the record. So that's what I would say. That's what I would say. I'm not saying Gabe Davis is going to 100% be a Ram. I'm not even saying they kick the tires on him or even look his way. But I'm saying they should consider that. I really believe that. So I like what I've seen so far this offseason. I like what I saw in the draft. I think the Rams have the right mindset. I'm cool with whatever they do, but I think Gabe Davis would be a good fit for the Rams, and I think it's a player to look out for. But those are my thoughts on this team right now. I do think they are ready to go all in for 2025. Very similar to 2021. I think they know that this is the year that they can really do damage. Last year, they felt that way as well, but it's always been about 2025. Ask anybody since they won the Super Bowl after the 2022 season where it just went south. Everybody's been looking at 2025. It's like, okay, now you got some cap to play with. And they didn't really add a ton of guys. They weren't crazy with it. They re-signed a lot of the same guys. Probably because they realized 2024 was ahead of the curve and they should have probably won the Super Bowl last year. Despite the fact they did have some, let's just say, cons on the team. Now, this is one of the best rosters we've seen in the McVay era. I'm excited to see it, and I wouldn't mind them adding Gabe Davis. I definitely hope, and I'm just I would assume they're going to, but I really hope they add Jalen Ramsey. And yeah, that's how I feel. But that's all I got for you guys. So appreciate Bleacher Report as always for having me. Be sure to follow me on all social media at JK Bogan, including Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and Kick. Also, be sure to check out my YouTube channel if you're watching this not on YouTube. Be sure to check out my YouTube channel, Jake Ellenbogen, where I cover the Rams. But that's going to do it. You guys take care. I'll see you soon. Later, folks.